Hello, investment programmers. Have you heard the term generative AI or Gen AI? It's everywhere these days, and people want to know they can leverage it to improve everyday processes. In this video, we're going to dive into Amazon Code Whisperer and talk about how you can leverage Gen AI to help you code faster, better, or hopefully both. So watch this video, and if you like it, hit the like button and subscribe. Okay, so here we are in my development environment, and I'm going to look at how to get going with Code Whisperer. Now, the first thing you need to do is set up an AWS Builder ID. And you can get to that. You can search on Google. You can find the Create Your AWS Builder ID page on the documentation. And that's going to bring you to a link here that says Builder ID Profile. When you click on that, it's going to bring you to the page where you can either sign in or create your own Builder ID. Now, creating this, it's important to understand your Builder ID, you should connect to your personal email account, even if you're going to use it with an organization. The idea is your Builder ID can follow you and not be tied specifically to an organization. So if you leave an organization, you can take the Builder ID with you and move on. You can do your personal work. You can then move between different AWS accounts, things of that nature. So the Builder ID is you, not your company. Okay, so you can come here, you can create your own Builder ID. You can associate with optional MFA, highly recommended, because later on down the track, you may use your Builder ID to get into a development environment, and you wouldn't want somebody to be able to grab your resources. So create your Builder ID here, simply enter in your email address and then walk through the wizard process. I already have one, so I don't need to go through that process, but you want to start here with creating a Builder ID. The next part of getting Visual Studio Code set up and able to use Code Whisperer is to download the AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. You can get that here from the website, aws.amazon.com/Visual Studio Code. You can also get that by inside of Visual Studio by searching through the extensions. So if I start up here, you can see that once it's installed, I've got a AWS extension plugged into my Visual Studio environment. To get started, what I want to do is click here to connect to AWS to get started. I can click Code Whisperer and sign up or sign in. Now what this is going to do, this is going to pop up a window and generate a code for me. So I can click proceed to browser. And this is going to start trying to connect me to that Builder ID that I've got. So I can confirm and connect. Now when I come in here, once again, after I've already got my Builder ID set up, I can click already have AWS Builder ID, sign in, populate my email address, go in with my password. And now this is just going to ask me to confirm that I want to allow the connection from AWS Toolkit for VS Code to access my data. So I can click allow. And once I'm done, I can go back to VS Code. And you can see here, connected to Code Whisperer with AWS Builder ID. Back here in the developer tools, you can see for AWS Builder ID connected as far as Code Whisperer is concerned. Now there's a couple of different connections that are available here. You've got the Code Whisperer through the Builder ID, Code Catalyst, CDK. Code Whisperer is connected there, but you've also got the Explorer for being able to connect. And you can have different connection points. So you can have the AWS Explorer connected through, say, a access key and secret key, or better yet, SSO connected into your account, and you can have a separate builder ID connected through, say, Code Whisperer. So you can have those two different things for different types of authentication, which is very important for you. Okay, so now once you've got your AWS Builder ID set up and you've got your plugin installed in Visual Studio Code and connected to your ID, now you can actually start using it to do some programming. So let's jump into Visual Studio Code again. And you can see here I've got a very simple demo class set up. It's a C# function. And I've just simply created a main function. Now let's imagine I want to read in a text file. So right away I'm trying to get suggestions here, but read in a text file by name. What I can do is I can put in a comment in my code that says what I want to do, and I can write that in plain English. Now Code Whisperer is going to start thinking about suggestions and things that can happen. Now, if it doesn't pop up a suggestion right away, you can go Alt-C and that will automatically kick it in and start the completion process. And you can see here in the video, it's starting to suggest things for me. So the first thing it's going to suggest is a function name and prototype. So I can do that. And now it's going to start going along and adding suggested text as I go. So here's another suggestion. How can I read that text file in? Based on the comment, it's assuming that it's a text file name that's been passed in. And so it's going to suggest to me that I'm going to go File, Read All Text. So what if I don't want to read the whole text file in at once? Well, let's see. I can change my, take out the function, and I'll say read in a text file line by line. Again, working with the comments, I'm passing in a context window that tells it what I want to do. And once again, I'll start off with the suggestions, and I simply hit Tab, and I can start with the completion. And so now what's going to happen is it's changing the suggestion based on the different types of commands that I've done. So I'll accept that. So I'm opening up a text file with a stream reader, and I'm reading line by line. So you can see as my desired results are changing, I can simply change the comment that I'm feeding in, and the code that I'm actually getting out is going to change to suit my needs. Let's try one more variation. I'm going to take out that function and ignore lines starting. Once again, let's see what this does. So this is really going beyond the idea of simple code templates that might be around and say, well, this is a quick code template to read in a file. It's taking in a lot of contextually aware information based on what I'm telling it in these comments and generating code along those lines, what I really want. All right, now, anybody who knows me knows I really am not a very good Python programmer. I can maybe hack together a few lines of Python code. It's something that's been on my list to learn for ages because a lot of automation code gets written in Python. So, like I said, I know pretty much nothing about Python. So let's see how far I can get using Code Whisperer to help me create that same simple function. Read line by line and ignore lines starting with Okay, so again, a very simple process to do with Python. I'm sure if you are a Python programmer, you wouldn't have any problem coming up with this code. But for me, I would have had to go and Google it. And it certainly would have taken me a lot more time than it did to simply type out the comment and hit tab a few times. Now, obviously, Code Whisperer isn't going to solve all the programming problems in the world. It's not going to make me a world-class Python programmer or even a novice Python programmer. I got a lot of studying to do there. But it certainly is able to help me on some of those basics and getting moving. So it'll mean that I don't have to quite go to Google and search through so many times to find some basic functionality. Now, Code Whisperer isn't just limited to telling you how to do very simple functions. You can actually do larger chunks of work with it too. So let's swap back to my C# project. Let's say I want to create a class that represents books. This is a fairly common use case for entry-level projects. Create a new class and Code Whisperer is going to go out and it's going to start populating with suggestions for code. Now, one thing to be aware of is you may get multiple suggestions in a specific scenario. Your left and right keys can swap through the different types of completion. So in this case, it's even suggesting multiple different classes that we might want to create. But let's say here we've got a book. We might want title, author, number of pages, different formats for how this is going to be completed. And then obviously once I get into the individual functions and methods, I can actually start using Code Whisperer to refine it even further. So great utility for saving quite a bit of time and effort. Okay, now one final thing I want to show is, when we start writing code, that's great, but inevitably our code has to connect to a database. And for a lot of us that know how to do, say, C# programming, writing SQL Server code may not be our strongest point. Code Whisperer can even help with some of that work, writing the database code. Create SQL DDL. Once again, I can go to Code Whisperer, and it's going to start suggesting to me SQL Server code that can actually help me with that process. Now, this is great because I am terrible with trying to come up with SQL Server DDL. Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a complete solution. It may not be entirely the best code. It may not be optimized the way I want it to be, but at least it gives me a starting spot that I can then start using to build out my SQL Server tables. So this is a huge time saver for somebody like me who is basic at best with SQL Server, but I know my C# programming. All right, so in this video, we covered the basics of how to use Amazon Code Whisperer. Now I have to say, I'm really liking Code Whisperer and how it helps me to complete my code and gives me some suggestions along the way and really helps reduce the amount of time I spend looking for code samples and how to do basic tasks that I may need a little bit of a refresher on. So next time I dive into Code Whisperer, we'll maybe look at some of the more advanced use cases like code scanning, for example. So I'd like to see how that works. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, please like and subscribe. It helps me to know that you're getting value out of my content that I produce. Complete source code for all of my videos can be found on GitHub. You can find me there at github.com/basementprogrammer. Thanks for watching my video. If you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button. It helps you to know when I have new content out, and it helps me to know I'm creating useful content for you. You can always find me at basementprogrammer.com. on Twitter and the Basement Programmer Podcast. Details listed here. If you have any comments on this video or you just want to get in touch, you can always email me. The address is tom@basementprogrammer.com. And I'll see you next time.